Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be going over how to make a scrap wood shelf for an entry door out of some scrap wood that I had laying around. Just a couple pieces of oak from some old projects. I think one was a door frame and the other was from a piece of molding. Anything will work for this project as long as it fits the size and scale that you're going for. To start out, I'm going to go through some milling process of planing and flattening both sides just to scrape the old varnish off. Process gets 3 sides square, and then I'll finish it up on the table saw to get that last face. You can see there I had a little hang up from the knot that's in the wood. Now here's squaring up that last side there. That's cutting off an old miter from a previous project. I wasn't following any dimensions for this project. I was just trying to use what I had to fit the scale I was going for. So you'll see me actually trim it down in a future frame here to get exactly what I wanted to go for. Now I'm cutting a dado on the bottom of the top of the shelf. This is just so that a scrap piece on the left there can fit in there and you won't see any seams. Gives it a little more glue surface area. You could do this with a dado, but I just choose to do it with a regular table saw blade, inching it over a little bit every time. If you're doing a lot of repeated cuts, it might make more sense to switch to a dado blade, but if you're just doing one little quick job, it's easier just to leave the blade in as far as I'm concerned. Here's to get that last little piece there, so you're not going too far into the fence, you're cutting on the safe side of it. That process gets it relatively flat, but there is a few hang-ups from it, from where the blade didn't quite cut through. Just coming through with a chisel to get the bulk of that off is usually the best technique. That's one advantage of using a dado stack, is you wouldn't get that effect. Yeah, just to clean it up a little bit before I hit it with a plane. Check the fit there to see to make sure I'm exactly square on that back corner, and I just sneak up on that cut, going a little bit at a time, an extra hair, just till that 3/4 inch piece fits perfectly. That gets you a nice tight glue joint. You zoom in on there for effect. Still need to clean it up with the plane, but that shows that it's square and it will rest nicely. Here I'm going to come in with a shoulder plane just to clean up that dado a little bit from where the chisel couldn't get. This is nice because it references on that side of the dado there, so I can't go into the cut anymore. And it just hits down all those high spots for me, so it gets me nice and flat. You can see here too how I leave the extra waste on until I'm ready to cut it off. That's all based on that scrap wood scale. You know, you can only use what you have. So I keep everything long until I'm ready to make that final decision of where it's going to end up. You can see there that shorter piece, that dictates the size of the shelf. So once I try and maximize the size of that, and then I can trim the other piece to fit. Use that same technique of sneaking up on that cut till it's perfect. And there it is. Gluing up the joint, the only major joint on the project here. I only glue one side of my joints. I see some people that do both. I find it just to be a waste of glue. And you get way too much squeeze out, and it's a lot more cleanup on the other end. I'm pulling out some squares just to make sure that that surface is perfectly square to each other, so when it gets hung on the wall, stuff's not falling off the front of the shelf. Here we pick up the next day, removing the clamps. You can see the shop dog for a brief appearance there. Just going through and feeling, make sure everything feels alright, soft to the touch. I'll hit it up with some sandpaper to knock off those rough edges and some of the glue that's squeezed out. There wasn't much in this particular example, but it always helps to just get a flat surface before finishing. For this project, I'm just doing some regular polyurethane, just because it will get some wear and tear with wallets and sunglasses and stuff getting put on it over time. Plus, it's what I have on hand, which usually dictates what I use for a finish on a project. It's really easy to overdo it with polyurethane, so I found that a very thin coat with multiple coats is the best way to go. I'm always tempted to put on a thick layer, thinking that it would make it easier to dry and finish, and it never works out. Here I'm using some 3D printed triangles as drying racks. All that's touching it is a single point, and I put it on the back side so it won't be seen anyway. It allows you to do more of the project at once without waiting for finish to dry before you continue. Also here I'm just using a screwdriver, sometimes I'll use an ice pick just to hold it steady while you're finishing. Same thing, that small area of the tip of the screwdriver doesn't interfere with the finish that much. For the interest of time, I'm only showing one coat, when in reality I went through and did two more. Here's after the final coat, just going through a quick look over, make sure everything's alright, and hit it with a little bit of 320, very lightly. This just scuffs and gets those last of those high spots off, and you can wipe off the dust, and the finishing on your project is done. Now I'm going to install some brass hooks just for keys, any kind of umbrellas, any kind of small objects you have that you want to have ready at the go. Doing some layout so it's even on both sides. Give it a nice consistent look. Pre-drilling before putting it in, because that brass is very soft and it will break. So giving it a nice pilot hole makes it easy to get those threads started. I always start these by hand and then come in with a screwdriver, or in this case a nail set. Just kind of gets you a better grip around it so you can tighten it better, so you're not straining your fingers. Here's laying out on the back of the shelf for some hangers. These are a pretty arbitrary point, just picked what seemed to look the best and even on both sides. You're just tapping them in. And then your screw can hang in that hole at the top. Here's a final look before we hang it up. Pretty simple, yet that's all you need for an entry shelf. And here it is where it will live. Thanks for watching.